Iran strikes in Iraq, Syria, and Pakistan have been conducted, while Iran has stated that it does respect all nations' sovereignty and territorial integrity. Yet it will not hesitate to act militarily if its own national security is threatened. Has Iran acted within the rules of international law, deterrence, and defense of its own security? Iran has been a victim of terrorism, though, since the early days after the victory of the Islamic Revolution. The most recent terrorist attack hit Kerman almost 2 weeks ago, claiming more than 90 lives. Many Iranians, be it ordinary people, officials, and nuclear scientists, have fallen victim to foreign-backed terrorist attacks. In this edition of The Spotlight, we will look at those who have acted against Iran, now and in the past, like Israel and the U.S., who have backed terrorist groups committing terrorist acts against Iran. First, let me introduce our guest for this edition of the program. Yousof Azizi is an international affairs expert who joins us from Washington, D.C. Also joining us is Shabbir Rizvi, who's a political commentator, joining us from Chicago. Gentlemen, welcome to you both. I'll start with you, Yousof Azizi. We're looking at the situation with IRGC that has targeted 3 countries. And I'm going to start with that, but move into the bigger picture of how Iran has not only been a victim of terrorism, but the malign and terrorist activities exercised on Iran backed by some other countries. So let's look at Iraq now, where we're looking at the Iraqi Kurdistan region of Erbil. This is a site that Israel used to spy, basically, covert operations, but in particular the focus was Iran, and it was used by Mossad, supported terrorists, and obviously led to destabilizing activities. And it wasn't the first time that Iran has targeted that. We also had some news that there were some Mossad agents that were taken out as a result. What do you think about the fact that Iran has struck this site and taken out what has been, as I stated, these anti-Iran terrorist activities in nature?
I think the most important message of Iran attack on Iraqi Kurdistan is about showing that Iran doesn't hesitate to extend its exercise of security right, which means that the kind of fragile state or the kind of region that it is a battlefield for intelligence maneuver of most of the region countries, regional powers, and global powers like Iraqi Kurdistan, Iran doesn't hesitate to, move, act boldly and militarily against any threat that conducted directly or indirectly from there. I mean that, it's a kind of head source of the intelligence movement by Mossad intelligence or other countries' global powers intelligence in Iraqi Kurdistan. So it gives a really considerable message to Israel, to United States, to England, that Iran is not just committed the right of its, the self-determination and something like that inside its border. It will go outside its border to maintain and make sure that there is no threat coming inside the country from their non-stable neighborhood.
But the mere fact, and I'm going to stick with just one more question on this, Shabbir Rizvi, when it comes to this particular building that the Mossad used, is the fact that this was actually training grounds for terrorists. And one of the most notable ones in terms of the terrorist act that they carried out was against the late Iranian nuclear scientist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh. And it's not the first time. And of course, in the bigger picture, and your opinion matters here, is how Israel is known to support anti-Iran terrorist groups, such as the Mujahideen Khalq organization. Was Iran within its rights to defend its national security, really, by targeting this particular site?
I think Iran was completely within its rights to target these sites of terrorist activities, particularly Mossad. And Mossad's #1 mission for anyone who's been paying attention since the Islamic Revolution is to curtail the Islamic Revolution of Iran, is to become a direct threat to Iran, and as you said, destabilize it. If if I knew that my neighbor was planning to attack me tomorrow, if I knew that my neighbor was trying to assemble weaponry and carry out hits against me, and that this attack is imminent because of past precedents and what they're saying within their own political realm, then it would be irresponsible of me to not do anything about it, knowing that my family lives with me, knowing that maybe even young children live with me. It's a direct threat to me. This person is literally holding a knife to me saying, I'm going to stab you. Why aren't you fighting it back? So what the IRGC did was absolutely within the realms of national defense. It's meeting the needs of its people. And I would even go far as saying it's doing the region a favor. We all know that Israel is a direct threat to the region. We all know that Israel carries out these destabilizing operations against states that don't want to normalize with it. So by taking out these Mossad cells, by taking out these intelligence operations and these acts of terrorist activity, Iran has done the entire region a solid favor.
Iran has shared intelligence with Iraq about what is said with the activities of the Israeli intelligence agency Mossad, Yousof Azizi, and on expanding further on what Shabbir Rizvi said, is that Iran is not, after having its relationship with the respective countries, to be impacted by it, but rather to take out these malign groups, terrorist groups, which would then serve not only security for that particular country, but also, as our guest there mentioned, for the region. Do you agree with that viewpoint?
Yeah, as your guest mentioned, the security of the region is the collective responsibility of all government of the region. So it is a mutual understanding between Iran and Iraqi government, Iran and Pakistan government. And in the case of Iraqi Kurdistan, we know that they have some kind of autonomy. And we know that during the history, they try to find out foreigners to help them to have more powers and powers and powers. So it seems that Israel found a relatively good friend, neighbor in near Iranian border, which is some groups or some businessmen in Iraqi Kurdistan. And I believe that the kind of diplomatic maneuver by Iraqi government and Pakistani government, they are normal. They are something that not very serious. Any country should talk against the kind of attacking by other countries in such a manner. But behind the scene, I'm sure that Iranian security intelligence, Iranian diplomatic relations with Iraq and Pakistan would maintain very good, and maybe these acts could also improve their security relation, because the radical group or terrorist group inside Pakistan or inside Iraq is not helping their government and their security as well. So there is a need, probably in the past years, Iran and Pakistani officials, Iranian officials, and Iraqi officials, they have been engaging in serious talk about the collective security. But it needs more, I think, attention. It needs more energy to put to avoid any kind of terrorist attack inside each of these countries.
Well, I'm sure there's a complex web of relationships that exist here when it comes to the terrorist groups, Shabbir Rizvi, such as Daesh Khorasan, such as Jaish ul-Adl in Pakistan, where Iran targeted. And again, it wants the cordial relationship with Pakistan to be upheld. But at the same time, we know Jaish ul-Adl is an internationally recognized terrorist group. So taking that group out, or not out, but targeting the positions of this group, again, falls in line with the preservation of Iran's national security. So that strike in itself is justified. But it comes to the relationship that these terrorist groups have with, for example, the U.S. and Israel. There have been many linking the Jaish al-Adl to Israel, for example. Tell us in the bigger picture some of the instances that you see, Israel, for example, and terrorist groups.
Yes, what it comes down to primarily is going to be destabilization, and primarily through economic means. For example, there have been numerous occasions where I believe it was the Balochistan Liberation Party, or the Balochistan Liberation Army rather, that has targeted several economic projects between Pakistan and China, as well as Pakistan and Iran. a key factor to destabilizing an entire region is to attack its economic projects, specifically economic projects that link countries together. And of course, these economic projects bring common prosperity to both countries. For example, Iran and Pakistan, or Pakistan and China. And so what a malign actor can do is, if they don't want to get their hands dirty, is that they can deploy terroristic cells, for example, these various terrorist groups, to do the dirty work for them. And what that means is they'll target things like, shipping docks, they'll target railroads, they'll target anything that's very sensitive to any border region in order to cause chaos, in order to disrupt the flow of any economic prosperity. And therefore, if you hit the economy of any country, of course, it's going to hurt, and more people are going to be less enthusiastic to trade with you because they don't see you as a secure partner. So when Iran moves to destroy these terroristic cells, it's not only for Iran's national protection, but again, like I said previously, it's for the stability of the region. The more interwoven the region is, the more cooperative it is, especially when it comes to economic projects. Then it doesn't need things like, the United States, which deploys things like the IMF loans to Pakistan in order to control vast swaths of the Pakistan's government and its projects throughout the region. So again, Iran is doing the entire region a solid by taking care of these terroristic groups.
Yes, a couple of instances here that I'm looking at. The Daesh terrorist attack that happened in the Iranian city of Afaz back in 2018, 24 were killed. You're looking at the other incidents in Chabahar, 40 were killed by a group called Jandullah. You have, Yousof Azizi, the U.S. being involved either covertly or indirectly, and that's not new news to the Daesh terrorist group as a whole. And this is something that has been ongoing. We can trace this as far back in terms of anti-Iran activities by the U.S. Can you explain to us how that works out for the U.S. when it comes to these terrorist groups overall? So maybe we get an idea of the bigger picture here.
So the most important factor here is to destabilizing the government of the region. So when you put a power gap in a region like Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, it makes, it naturally brings some kind of radical movement or radical group. If we don't want to say that United States directly involved in creating this or supporting this such group, but indirectly, there's no question about that. So the United States, the fact that your guest talking about the economic development, economic relation, we can see about the United States sanctioning the peace gas pipeline between Iran and Pakistan. And all of these factors is because of making sure that any collective security between the regional government wouldn't happen without maintaining the United States security, which is having the fossil fuels, the gas, the oil, and everything coming through the Western countries with the cheap, in the cheap money. So I think it is, and also the security of Israel is another factor that we can talk later about that. But the fact is, United States act in the past 20 years about the war on terror or the global or the greater Middle East. All of these created the power gap in the region. And I'm sure that the only country, the sole country that put this gap, put a power in this gap, maintain this gap, and put a relation between all of the government in this region, and is a center point for the collective security in the region is Iran. It is in the history, the historical events show that the human resources, natural resources, the geography of Iran, all of these shows that Iran could be the hegemon in the region and maintain the security of the region. So it is very important to understand that when the United States are looking to the east, to the China, to the Eastern Europe, focusing mostly on the global power politics with Russia and China, it would be some kind of turbulence in this region like Middle East. And it is in the common interest of the region to cooperate to each other to maintain the security for all.
Well, the direction I was trying to go with this, and maybe you can expand on this, because it's it really sheds light, and again, it's not new news, but the fact that it's still ongoing, Shabbir Rizvi, is, for example, the U.S. And its CIA organization, or I should say, the CIA entity as a whole, who basically has a classified budget, not so classified, when it comes to anti-Iran operations. I mean, it's been involved in many operations that are involved against Iran, using different groups or people, etc., in terms of financing them, to basically act against Iran. There have been many protests inside Iran that have been steered, financed, one way or another by some of these budgets that disperse the money. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that, because you have, as I'm looking at over here, many former high-ranking CIA officers who have basically stated what I just said.
I mean, you kind of just say it. If your enemy has a budget dedicated just to disrupt you, then you really have to look at who are the main players that are trying to get you within the region. And if you look at, Iran today, it's surrounded by some allies, but it's also surrounded by some foes. But also, the allies within these regions do have some terroristic cells being harbored. And Iran has reportedly resorted to dialogue first, time and time again, saying, hey, Pakistan, hey, Iraq, you have some bad people sharing a border with us. Can you please do something about it? And time again, Iran has also stated that, like, hey, these people are connected to the CIA. These people are connected to Mossad. You have to do something about it. And the writing is on the wall there, too. They're clearly linked. There's an economic trail, a money trail that leads to the U.S. And since the U.S. policy since 1979 has been to overthrow Iran, to overthrow the Islamic Republic of Iran. And as we saw in the foreign-backed riots in 2022 in Iran, the United States was happy about it. So whatever is basically bad for Iran is going to be good for the United States. So anyone who wants to lash out at Iran right now for protecting itself should ask themselves, do you really support these terrorists who will ultimately, at the end of the day, only serve the United States? Do you want to be on the same side of the people that are financing Israel by selling Iraqi assets off to the Israeli regime? No, of course you don't, because these are the people that intend to destabilize the region in order to send in their own financiers, their own capitalists, take all the resources and only make themselves rich and exploit the people there. Iran is the one of the key players here that's defending the entire region from this exploitation, from this invasion, and they really need to take out these terrorists all over the region that are scattered by CIA money, by Mossad money and operations. And quite frankly, if you are against Iran doing that, then you need to consider whose side you really are on.
And they're continuing this in a rather going against international law, Yousof Azizi, in the case of Syria in particular, where the U.S. is there illegally, has a base there. The Al-Tanf is famous for the fact that it's been accused of training terrorists to carry out terrorist attacks inside in Syria in particular. But of course, we know that Iran has targeted the terrorists there and in many areas. And this was something that is very dominant on the border of Syria, Jordan, and Iraq. The terrorists move in and out of this area freely to use for whatever directions and orders they are being given. Why isn't there a way to, I mean, Iran has acted and Iran continues to, but why does the U.S. continue this way to try to go after destabilizing the governments, not just Syria, but also Iran?
As you said, there are two ways that you can go militarily in another country. One is the United Nations Security Council resolution, which is not happening about the Syria or Iraq in 2003, invading by United States, but Bush administration, and also inviting by the own government of that country that the other countries coming and help them to maintain the security. So in the case of Syria, again, the legitimate government of Bashar al-Assad invited Iran and Russia, not Turkey or United States or NATO. So this is very important and showing the double standard of the United States, that when it is in their interest and they thought that their national security needs such a action against the international law, they would go. They don't need any permission from anywhere. They do whatever they want. And in the case of Iran, to act boldly against the terrorist group around its country, around its border, they said about the international law, which is not correct. As you said, in the interest of the United States wanted some weak government in the region, in the Middle East, and government that is completely under United States influence. So the fact that the 1979 Islamic Revolution in Iran completely changed this dynamic in the region, and nowadays the Iran is a kind of message to other countries in the region that you can have your independence, you can have your own security doctrine and economic and political doctrine inside your country, and thinking about the regional security with the regional power, not using and helping the global power. So this is very important message that they wanted to make sure that Iran also being destabilized.
All right, thank you very much for that. Yousof Azizi, international affairs expert from Washington, D.C. Shabbir Rizvi, political commentator from Chicago. Thank you to you both. With that, we come to an end for this edition of World News. I'm sorry, for this edition of The Spotlight. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until the next program, it's goodbye.